I want to kick this off with a question that's pretty philosophical, but also surprisingly practical. And it comes straight from our source material.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is the human body just organized chaos? A bunch of cells doing their own thing? Or is there a single central manager coordinating everything?
That is the perfect question to start with because when you think about the scale, I mean, trillions of cells, right?
Right.
All these processes happening at once. The idea of some kind of order seems almost impossible.
Exactly.
But our research for this, it's absolutely clear. There isn't just a manager. There's a remarkably precise, sophisticated timekeeping system that sets the rhythm for everything.
And that really sets up our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the sources that pinpoint this exact control system, what they call the body's master clock.
Mhm.
And here's the kicker, the fact that it just changes everything. This manager is in your brain, but its control is, well, it's global. It controls so much more than just when you feel sleepy.
It's like thinking about an operating system. We're moving past seeing the body as just hardware.
And seeing the software.
Exactly. The software that organizes it all.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's find the conductor. If there is this centralized manager, where? Where is it physically?
The sources all point towards the central nervous system, of course. We're talking about what's known as the biological clock,
The biological clock.
which is the whole system that tracks our 24-hour cycles. But the specific manager, the little piece of hardware running the show, is a tiny nucleus in the brain. That's the master clock.
Now, most people, when they hear biological clock, they just think of sleep.
Sure, that's the obvious one.
But you're saying its job is much, much bigger than that. What's its actual mandate?
Total synchronization. That's its purpose. Its role is to organize and orchestrate the timing for every single cell in your body.
Every cell.
Everyone. It is the primary structure that dictates the schedule for every single process.
Okay, see, that's the part of the source material that genuinely got me. When you say every cell,
Yeah.
you're not just talking about the obvious ones, like the brain or the liver.
Nope.
The sources are saying this control extends to things we think of as
Well,
static, like skin cells, bone cells. How is that even possible?
it's because they only seem static. In reality, they are constantly going through cycles of repair, regeneration.
Turnover.
Exactly. Skin cells renew on a schedule. Your bone density isn't constant. It has peaks and dips throughout the day.
Okay.
And the sources emphasize that these little cycles are all regulated by what they call clock genes. The master clock in your brain is basically the switch that tells those genes when to turn on and when to be silent.
So without that signal from the brain, a cell wouldn't know when to work or when to rest.
It wouldn't. It'd be chaos.
So we have this tiny little spot in the brain acting as the master scheduler for the whole body, right down to activating DNA. That is a breathtaking level of control.
It is. And it completely changes how you have to think about health.
How so?
Well, if your skin cells are trying to repair themselves at a time of day when the master clock has told the rest of your body to spend energy somewhere else, you're creating stress on the whole system.
This is where it gets really interesting, because now we're moving from what it is to what it does.
The job description.
Exactly. So let's look at the essential functions this master clock controls. Beyond just making us sleepy, what are the big dials it's turning?
The master clock sets the timing for systems that are just essential for daily survival. The sources break it down into 4 major areas.
Okay.
The first, and the one everyone knows, is sleep patterns. When you get drowsy, when you wake up. Simple enough.
And the second area?
Hormonal release. This one is critical.
Why critical?
Because hormones are chemical messengers and their timing is everything. Think about cortisol, the stress hormone.
Right.
The master clock makes sure your cortisol levels surge right before you wake up. It's getting your body ready for the day.
So it's a get-ready signal.
Yes, and it does the opposite at night, telling your system to release melatonin, the sleep hormone. If those timings get messed up, your whole feeling of being awake or being tired is completely thrown off.
So if I normally wake up at 7, but on the weekend I sleep in until 10, I'm not just resting, I'm actually messing with my cortisol timing.
You're messing with it, absolutely. You're sending conflicting signals to your central scheduler.
And that has ripple effects.
Big ones. The master clock really, really relies on consistency.
Okay, what else is on his control panel?
It manages your pulse and heart rate. Your heart rate isn't supposed to be flat.
It slows down when we sleep.
Right. It slows way down, and then it gets ready to speed up right when you wake. That readiness, your body's ability to pump blood and oxygen efficiently, is timed by the master clock to peak in the middle of the day.
When you'd be most active.
Precisely. If the
Yeah.
clock is off, that smooth transition from rest to activity,
Yeah.
it gets clunky.
And the fourth area. This one touches on pretty much everyone's daily life.
It does. Energy levels.
The afternoon slump.
That's part of it, yes. Your energy is tied to timing through hormones and metabolism. The master clock dictates when your body is best at processing sugar when it stores fat.
So it's telling my body what to do with the food I eat.
Yes, through hormones like ghrelin and leptin, the hunger and satiety ones. If you eat a huge meal late at night, your clock is usually signaling for storage mode, not burning mode, because it thinks sleep is coming.
And that's where the sources connect this to things like weight gain.
That's a core mechanism they point to. It sets the whole rhythm for your metabolism, your energy peaks, and, yes, those slumps.
This makes it feel less like a simple clock and more like a huge orchestra conductor.
That's a great way to put it.
But if the master clock is just this one tiny bit of tissue, how does it communicate its schedule to literally every other cell in your toes, your stomach?
And that is where the sources use this really powerful analogy. The key is that the master clock doesn't do all the work itself.
Okay.
The sources explain that every single cell has its own small clock, a little local timekeeper.
So there are millions of tiny clocks all over my body, each keeping its own time. That sounds like a recipe for absolute chaos.
It would be. And that's exactly why you need the master clock in the brain.
To keep them all in line.
Exactly. It acts as the conductor, leading all of those small clocks. The sources say, like a precise orchestra.
I love that.
Its job isn't to micromanage every cell, but just to keep them synchronized. It sets the tempo. It sends out signals, both through nerves and hormones, to make sure all those little cellular clocks are ticking together.
That orchestral metaphor is so helpful. It makes the body feel less like a machine with separate parts and more like a performance where timing is truly everything. It means that if one cell, say a liver cell, decides to go rogue and peak at midnight.
The conductor has to correct it.
Yes.
Precisely. If one section of the orchestra starts playing from a different sheet of music, the whole thing sounds terrible. It's just noise. The system relies on every small clock following that beat from the brain.
Which brings up a pretty important and maybe a slightly worrying question. How sensitive is this system? You know, we all have late nights or we fly across time zones. What happens if that rhythm gets lost?
The sources are extremely clear about how serious that is, and this is really the key takeaway for your own health. The consequences are measurable, and they are significant.
So it's not just feeling tired.
No. If the internal rhythm is repeatedly disturbed, the whole body basically suffers. Catastrophic synchronization failure. The sources literally say the entire system gets messed up.
That sounds dramatic, but I think we all kind of know what that feels like.
Yeah.
What are the specific health impacts they list when the orchestra loses its rhythm?
They detail the exact consequences of that chronic misalignment. First, there's a general increase in your risk for illness and diseases.
Not just a cold.
Not just a cold. We're talking increased risk for chronic metabolic problems, cardiovascular issues, because your immune and repair systems aren't working at the right times.
And what about the more immediate day-to-day effects?
Higher levels of stress and tension, that's often tied directly to the mistiming of that cortisol release we talked about.
So your body is in a constant state of get ready, even when it shouldn't be.
Yes. Then there's measurable weight gain. We touched on the hormones, but when the timing of how you process nutrients gets flipped, your body tends to store calories instead of burning them.
Even if you're eating the same amount.
Even if your calorie intake doesn't change.
And of course, the most obvious one.
Sleep disturbance, which is often the first domino to fall. It's a vicious cycle, really. Bad timing causes poor sleep, and poor sleep messes up the timing even more.
So what the sources are really saying is that these common problems, stress, weight gain, might not just be about what you do, but when you do it.
That's the fundamental insight. It could be a failure of the internal conductor to keep the beat.
If you think about real-world examples, like shift workers,
A perfect example.
they are living in a state of constant temporal disruption.
Right.
Their cells are getting conflicting signals from their environment versus their brain.
Exactly. Their master clock in the brain is screaming that it's 3 a.m., it's nighttime. But their peripheral clocks, the ones in their liver and gut, are being forced to operate on a daytime schedule because they're eating and working.
That dissonance isn't just uncomfortable.
It's biologically taxing. The system just wasn't built for that. So the insight is you have to look upstream at the timing, not just treat the downstream symptoms.
This has been a really comprehensive look at the body's hidden operating system.
Mhm.
When we pull it all together, what's the one core takeaway from all this source material?
The conclusion is, well, it's simple, but it's incredibly powerful. The sources state, pretty definitively, that the mind, your neurological control center, is the true conductor of time inside your body.
So it's the brain that's in charge of the schedule.
It is the central administrator ensuring order and rhythm across every single microscopic process.
That really reframes the whole conversation about health.
Hmm.
It means the body isn't just a collection of parts. It's a meticulously timed symphony.
It is.
And our job, I guess, is to try and honor that rhythm.
It absolutely is. Understanding this master clock means realizing that everything from your hormones to your heartbeat is governed by a precise schedule. When we ignore it with erratic lifestyles, the consequences are predictable. And they are profound.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to take away from this deep dive. Given that everything from your metabolism to your energy levels are tied to this internal clock, just think about your own daily schedule. What's one small, conscious change you could make?
Mm.
Maybe it's when you eat your biggest meal, or when you choose to exercise, or even just when you finally decide to put down your phone and dim the lights. What's one small thing you could do to better honor your body's own established internal rhythm?